Hey guys, Happy New Year! Since the beginning of 2021, I would like to show you a tool today that you can use to plan for the whole year. I use it for myself and for my own business, and it helps me a lot to focus on the main goals and especially on the tasks I have to do to eventually reach them. So if you haven't planned your year yet, I would say it's time to do so. And I will show you the tool. I will show you exactly the planning process step by step and how you can get a file. And it's completely free. So you need nothing more than a computer and an internet connection. So let's dive into it and have fun. Alright, the first thing we have to do to get this file is to click the link in the description, and then this file will open up in your browser. And then you can just click on File, go on Make a Copy, and then you will have this file inside your own Google Drive folder. So just do it and we'll be back in a second. If you made a copy, we're ready to go. I call this tool the Focus Calendar, and you find a name right here, and you can just rename it by clicking into it and give it an own name. If you want to change the logo right here, this is my logo, you can just click on it, go to Insert, then Image, and then Image in Cell, and then you can just select your own logo or whatever you want to place there. The tool is built of several sheets, and you can find the sheets down here in the bottom bar. And as you can see, we're right now in the sheet 2021, which is our main sheet. We have also other sheets like action details, cash flow, the drop down, and monthly sheets from January until December. So let's now start with this sheet here, 2021, our main sheet, and let's go over it. At the top, you can see what is your main goal for 2021. And I want you to put in your main goal right here in one sentence. And then we have to divide that goal into 1 to 6 milestones right here. After that, we're going to define some actions to finally reach those milestones. And then we take those actions and put them here into the calendar. So let me give you an example. I will be back in a minute and show you a real life example so that you can get a better understanding. Alright, I'm back from filling out this sheet, and I chose an example of someone who has the following goal. I want to set up a business and get my first customer. That's the goal. And then I divided it into 6 milestones here. Number 1 is defining my niche, find a problem, and creating a product or service that solves that problem. Then number 2 is setting up a business, so the official way. Number 3 is building my first business website. Number 4 is setting up my social media channels. Number 5 is making 30 YouTube videos and 30 blog posts. And number 6 is interacting with 200 potential customers and get my first paying client. As you can see, I tried to quantify those milestones as good as possible. So for example, 30 YouTube videos or get 1 paying client. And if you do that, that means you have like KPIs, and then you can see if you actually reach your goals or not. Okay, so if you want to do it right now, you can just pause the video and do the same for yourself. Secondly, I went over to the right side to Action Legend and defined some actions here. As you can see, you have a specific color for each action. And the first thing that I did was defining no work here, leisure time. And as you can see in yellow, I blocked some time for taking time off. Then I went through all those 6 milestones, for example, number 1, and I defined 3 actions here for the first goal. I said I do research for what do I want. Then number 2 is defining a niche and then creating the product or the service. So I have 3 actions for this one specific milestone. I did it also for the other goals, but maybe you have also some goals there where you only define 1 action. For example, here number 2 is setting up the business, and I defined only 1 action, set up a business. Then I put also stuff like planning the website layout, initial content here, creating the initial content like pictures and videos, setting up and building the website, setting up and building the social media channels, the content creation, the getting in touch or the organic outreach, and the bookkeeping. So if you set up a business, you have to do bookkeeping, right? And then 2 more like redefining my products, service, and niche and adjusting the website. So that means you have to frequently go over that stuff and improve it to make your business better. And then I took those colors here and put them into the different days during the year. And how you can do that, or the easiest way to do that, is by clicking inside the cell of the color. Then you press Ctrl C, and then you can select the range that you want to color or define for that specific action. Then you have two ways. Either you go right click, paste special, and paste format only, or use the shortcut Ctrl Alt and V. Let me do that. Select the range, Ctrl Alt and V, and then you see we have this orange here. You can undo it by going for Ctrl and Z, like that. If you want to define several ranges at one time, so for example, I want to take this part of March, some parts of April, you can just click Ctrl and then holding the left mouse button, and then you see you can select several ranges. Now if I press again Ctrl Alt and V, then we have those ranges in orange. Let's undo it again. Nice, and that's how it goes. And as you can see, I planned the whole year here, and as I said, it's an estimation, and later you have to go through that process again and again and again, and really see how long you need, and maybe if you made some mistakes here because you didn't have the experience, that's no problem. So the tool is for it's a frequent process. Good. Since we have defined our actions here and our goals, we want now go a little bit more into detail. So for that, we have another sheet that's called Action Details. Let me click on it. And as you can see at the top, we have our 6 milestones there. And now we want to define for each milestone like a big list of actual actions, so like tasks, okay? So let me go back to 2021, and maybe you are now thinking, why do I have to do that again? I mean, we already have some actions here, but this is like the big side, okay? Like the big view, but in the action details, we want to split or divide those actions into many tasks and specific as possible, okay? Let me give you an example. Let's take number 3, building my first business website. And as you can see, or as I have already told, we have 3 actions here: planning the website layout and initial content, creating the initial content, and setting up and building the website. If you want to do that right now, you maybe think that's pretty hard to do, right? Because what should I plan, and for what do I have to create and stuff like that? So let me go to action details, and let's take the first point here, planning the website layout and initial content. So let's go to number 4 in column O, setting up, in column K, building my first business website. And now you're going to take this first action, like planning the layout. And for example, you could define tasks like planning the website colors, e.g. button colors, font, and so on. So the second point could be defining the pages on the website. So which pages are you will you use? So like the contact page and the home page and stuff like that. And then we could also say planning our funnel, so the website where you want your potential customers to visit your website. And you could define many more. And now let me go back to 2021. I will now take this color here, Control C, go back to action details, and right beside those tasks we defined, I will just paste again those colors. So Control, Alt, and V. And now I know exactly which tasks belong to which action. And the more you have here, or the more detailed it is, the easier it is for you to plan and to finally actually take action, okay? So if you define, or if you don't define an action pretty detailed, you will have a lot of problems to actually fulfill it. So I would suggest you to really spend a lot of time here. The next step after defining those detailed tasks is to take them and go into the actual monthly plannings. So let me go back to our main sheet 2021. And as you can see, for planning the website layout and initial content, we planned the calendar week 14 here from 5th April to 10th. And let me now go to April. Boom, and you see this is the sheet for the month, and you got a sheet like that for every single month. So we see now here number the 5th of April until the 11th of April, but we plan it only until the 10th. So to Saturday, because Sunday is always off. So now let's take those tasks. I will just copy them with Control-C. And now I go to April sheet again. And let's say we do the planning the website colors on Monday. Then we take the defining the pages on the websites. Let me also copy it. Let's say we do that on the 6th of April. And then maybe planning our funnel could take a little more time, like 3 days or so. So this duration or the number of days here should be the same as the number of days you defined here. If it's not the case, you can just adjust it here. If you have a task that goes over several days, like planning our funnel, we planned 3 days here. That's pretty much a sign that you haven't detailed it enough. So planning our funnel is like not really specific. It's like pretty general. And so it will be hard for you to really take action if there's just planning our funnel. So what do we plan? So probably you could take this and divide it also in, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, or maybe 10 tasks. So that you can fill in here several tasks, like task 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, for example. And then you will see if the time's actually enough for that tasks. If you have only one big task, you cannot really estimate, okay, do I need 1 day, or a half day, or 10 days? You don't know. If you have 10 little tasks, it's better to estimate the specific or the exact range of time. Okay, so now I want you to really go in here, plan all your actions you want to do for your goals or for milestones. Then I want you to put in all the details into this sheet, and then you can transfer those details into your monthly planning. The next thing that we want to talk about is our rating. Let's go back to the April sheet here. And as you can see, at each week, you can see at the end, there is a week's rating. And you can just put in a number here. That's the rating for the week. So how well went it? So like, have you had a lot of stress? Have you been successful and stuff like that? And if the week was good, you can give 5 stars or 3, or when it was bad, you can give 1 star. So let's just put some numbers in here for this week's, and you can see that there are also some stars here. And if I go back to our 2021 sheet and we go here in this top row, this gray row, we can go right click and expand all column groups. We can also click on the pluses here. As you can see, we have now new columns here, and then you see the rating. And if we go to April, then you can see we have a rating here. And this helps you a lot to really get a feeling of the weeks and of your success during the weeks. What you also can see here is we have a cash column here for each week. And you can put in this by going to the cash flow sheet right here. This is our cash flow sheet, and here we have an overview of our cash flow year to date with cash, cash in, and cash out. So if you have to do any payments or any transactions here for your, in this example, for your business. You probably have for some specific goals some payments to do. For example, setting up the business, you maybe have to pay for the notary. You have for the building the website, you have to buy a domain and the web service or web space. So all the stuff you want to document right here in this cash flow sheet. Let's say we put in, firstly, as an example, we put some money into the business. Let's call it first in payment 2021. That's the subject. Then we can go to the category and use this drop-down menu, and you see here in payment. If you don't find a category that you need, or if you want to add new categories to this drop-down list, you can just go to our sheet drop-down, and here you find, for example, the financial categories. You can add new categories here or remove old ones. You can also see that the week's rating is here. So that means if you don't want to rate from 1 to 5 stars, you can remove some ratings here or add new numbers if you want to. Let's go back to cash flow. Let's say here the cash in out. We have a little note here. If you go over with the mouse, you see positive numbers means cash in and negative numbers cash out. So let's put in 3,000 euros or US dollar here, and let's define a date. Let's say it's 2021 and the 4th of January. That means calendar week 1. That's automatically calculated. Is it paid is the question right here. So you can put in an X here if the payment is already done. And you can put in a reference number in column H. So for example, the invoice number or refund number. Then we have a note here so that you don't forget important stuff. Let's say we have already made this payment, put an X here. As you can see, now we have cash of 3,000 because our cash in is 3,000. As you can see, the little X here is colored red. That's because today it's the 3rd of January and we defined the 4th of January. So that's actually the future right now. So it's red because if you have a payment in the future and you said you paid it already, that's actually not possible. So I made a little like arrow check here. Okay. So tomorrow, if I put in the X here, you will see it's not red anymore. But let's say we keep that X for now. Then let's say we make a payment for buying a domain. Let's choose the category, for example, website. Let's say the cash out is, I don't know, $50. That's pretty much, but there are also domains outside who are already reserved. So that could also be 1,000 US dollar, or also only 10. So let's define another date here. I think let's go quickly back to 2021 and make it a little bit more realistic. Number 3 is building my first business website, and there we have our action setting up and building the website, and here probably we want to buy the domain. So that means right here in May, let's define the 3rd of May. Go to cash flow and define the date 2021, 5 and 3rd. Now we see it's calendar week 18. And then when it's time to buy it, we can set the X here if the payment is done, and we can add a reference number and stuff like that. And then you can use this for your bookkeeping, which is pretty helpful. And you have a really good overview of all the cash that's related to your goals for 2021. Now you can see, by the way, if you take a look at our columns that we just expanded here for the cash, we see that in calendar week 1, we suddenly have 3,000 euros or US dollar here. And when we make the payment of the domain in May, we can see that our cash goes down in this calendar week to 2,950. So if we add another stuff, let's say, I don't know, example B, let's put anything here, let's say 1,000 here. We choose another date. Then we can see that we have here in calendar week 28 only 1,950 dollars or whatever left. And that helps you a lot to really see your cash flow and the status or the forecast of your cash, which is pretty helpful to see if you run out of cash. Alright, that's it for today's video. I hope this tool is helpful. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. And if you want to see more stuff like that, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and like the video if you want to. So thanks a lot for watching and have a good day.